Welcome back to 48 Hour Heroes Origin Stories. I have with me today Brian Bowers, who works for 48 Hour Film Project headquarters. And until recently, I believe, you were a longtime city producer.
Yeah,
So you're not city producing anymore?
correct. So I actually started as the city producer for Cleveland in 2008. That was my first sort of experience with the 48-hour film project. I did that for about a year. Simultaneously, I had a blog at the time called the Brian Bowers Project, and I was writing a lot about like entertainment and film. And the 48-hour film project was looking for a newsletter editor. So I submitted my info for that. So they, had known me through my work with doing the Cleveland 48 for at least a year, and then saw that I had the blog as well. So then I started to work with the 48 as the newsletter editor.
I remember that because I applied for it as well.
Did you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, you had more of a portfolio than I did, so it only made sense.
Yeah. The great thing was that sort of led to me coming on board to the headquarters team.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was the newsletter editor, they also, at the same time, I was running a photography studio. So, when Mark and Liz figured out that I could, take pictures, they asked me to come to Filmapalooza in Las Vegas, which was the NAB show. That was my very first Filmapalooza. So I went to Filma as sort of our, newsletter editor and to take pictures, which was great because it got me to Filma for the first time to kind of experience that and to meet everybody face to face. And that actually was a particularly fun Filma also because the NAB show and Jason Reitman, he was such a great speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something, that sort of always influenced me as well. But what happened was this led to, sort of an opportunity to come on board the headquarters staff. So before this point, the 48-hour film project, there was sort of a, group of 4 people that were the headquarters staff. And they were getting to the point where they, the work was too much and they needed to bring on some additional people. So they created positions called assistant director of operations, and we worked under Christina Rupert, who is our director of operations. And this sort of was the beginning of the infrastructure for, how the city producers interact with headquarters and with the 48. And, all of this stuff was sort of figured out in, around the time that they hired both myself and Laura Schlecht, who was, our Houston producer and was also, on the headquarters staff.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because, I started in 2005 and it was pretty much, I think we were in, maybe 25, 26 cities at that point.
Right.
And all of us were just hammering Mark and Liz with tons and tons of questions. And I mean, they must have been, prematurely aged by just volume of questions that were constantly coming in. And having to invent, kind of on the fly,
Yeah.
this infrastructure. And, we didn't have social media back then. We had MySpace, but that wasn't particularly helpful for the 48.
Right.
It really wasn't. And, so we were all using Craigslist and local bulletin boards and, anything we could to, get the word out. And
yeah, I actually got hired through a Craigslist ad. That's how I met Ben Giraldi.
Oh, Ben.
Yeah, who was the director of outreach at the time. I so the backstory with that is I was working as a talent agent at one of the SAG-AFTRA franchise agencies in Cleveland called the Talent Group. It's basically one of the top two agencies in our region. And so I sort of came in working in the broadcast division as an assistant, working with talent, putting people on for auditions, that sort of thing. I ended up becoming an actual agent and running the print division in our Cleveland office. And one of the things that I noticed was, all of our talent that we represented at the agency always wanted to work in film, right? Everybody wants to work in film. And so I wanted to figure out if there was a way to create more opportunities for, for our actors to kind of, and our talent to get involved in film projects. So when I saw the ad for the 48-hour film project, I thought, this could be something that's a really good fit.
Definitely.
And it ended up, sort of creating something new and bridging a gap and, opening up all sorts of roads for all sorts of people in, at least in the Cleveland area, for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I can see the same effect in Seattle, over the last 17 years. I can't, in my job as an editor, as a digital loader, DIT, I can't go onto a set where there aren't 48-hour, past or present participants. It's spread that wide. And a lot of times it's kind of like a family reunion. It's like, oh, I haven't seen you since 2012 when you did the 48. Yeah. And it's great. And that's one of my favorite things is, the mixed blessing of someone, participating for a number of years, and then they're too busy with, full-time work to do it anymore. It's very gratifying and, disappointing because I miss them, but
it's almost like being a teacher, I think, that sort of relationship, because, you sort of watch filmmakers grow up. I know it's probably the same for you. I've watched a lot of filmmakers go from making their first film to, which was, not so good.
Yeah.
To making a much better film the next year, and then to starting to work with other filmmakers. And then all of a sudden, like over the course of a decade, this person's like actually a filmmaker. And, they are making their own films. They're making their own money. And they've really created a career for themselves. And the 48 has sort of been the pathway to do that for many people.
Yeah, I mean the 2021 city winners for Seattle, it's three brothers, the Sawanchotes, and they've been doing it almost I'm pretty sure every year since 2012 or 2013. And they were, in their late teens to early 20s at that point. And, I remember their very early films, they weren't the most polished in the world, but there was something there. There was definitely
Right.
some heart. And to see them, every year participating, and I'd always joke, when I saw them, it's like, oh, if the Sawanchotes don't show up, I don't know what I'm going to do. And, that always got a good laugh out of them. And they're really, really nice guys. And when they won this year, I was overjoyed. I thought it was very well deserved, their best work. And, it was a drama, which is a rarity amongst American 48s, I think, for a drama to win.
Yeah.
And they are so excited to go to Filmapalooza. I was working on a set with all three of them just the other week. And so all three of them are going, and they're bringing most of their family with them. It's great. They're so excited. I was giving them, all the inside tips. It's like, on the inside, we call it Filma, not Filmapalooza. Like, oh, cool. We're getting the inside scoop.
Right.
I'm so excited for them to, show up at Filmapalooza, because I think they're going to make the most of it. They're really outgoing, gregarious, friendly guys. And I think they're going to walk away with friends all over the world.
Exactly. And that's, that's sort of what Filmapalooza is,
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to explain to people that haven't been there. Because it's a festival, but it's not like another film festival that, you would
exactly. It's not.
Yeah. It's much, much more. And very much a community and a network and a family.
Yeah.
Of filmmakers just from all over. So it's a really, really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to a fair number of film festivals in my time, and Filmapalooza is unique in that it is more like a family reunion than it is a film festival. And you're meeting a ton of family that you didn't know you had.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. That's the perfect analogy for that.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has, a shared experience in common, and there's immediately something to talk about.
Right.
With every single person you meet there.
Yep.
And, I mean, I think that, one of the biggest bummers is I barely get to see you at Filmapalooza.
Right.
You're always so damn busy.
That is a bummer for me too.
I was really happy in Rotterdam when, we got to hang out on the boat out on the deck for a while.
Right.
Yeah. You had a breakaway moment. We all get to hang out.
It's like you kind of have to take those small pockets of time. Being on the headquarters staff, we are just, we're like a mighty force trying to be in a million places at once and to make, sort of everything work. We're definitely growing and building, the headquarters staff to help make that better, so we can do a little more enjoying of Filmapalooza and a little less of wear a little less hats, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where, Wouter and Indra must be such a huge breath of fresh air.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, to have them come in and to have you come in to do, like the DCP and things like that, to have some of the producers take more of a leadership role in, Filmapalooza is a huge, huge thing. And it helps make the event much better. And, it helps the 48-hour film project, and it helps, everybody personally, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so I've helped out with all the domestic 48s basically since 2013, with the exception of 2014 when I couldn't attend because of work reasons. Yes, we all have work outside of the 48. It's a common misconception, but I was working with Nicole Haddock, who was running the screenings in LA both times, and in Atlanta, and actually in Seattle as well. And, I was in the theater, most of the time, locked up in the projection booth, watching, just making sure that the screenings were going right.
Right.
And, that cuts into your socializing time, but it's so worth it to, when you have that vantage from the projection booth, to look down into the theater and see everyone having, a blast and cheering for each other, and
right,
just having a good time seeing their film and other films up on the screen. It's one of the more rewarding parts of Filmapalooza for me, as someone who off and on works on it. Luckily, I didn't have to in Paris, because Olivier runs, a small 48 army there.
Right.
And Hans and Jasper did a fantastic job with Rotterdam. That was
absolutely
that was a really good Filmapalooza.
Yeah.
So good that I got the tattoo.
Yes, exactly. It's nice to see how like Filmapalooza has sort of evolved too over the years.
Yeah.
And become its own like living, breathing, thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely a format and a structure to it, but yeah, there is a nice organic quality to it. There's enough time, that isn't, taken up by Filma, where people can go out and do things independently.
Right.
I remember in Rotterdam, I went out with Chris and Jesse from Toronto, and with Angela and Pierre from Nijmegen.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, wandered around and got coffee in downtown Rotterdam, and, had a blast.
Right. Well, and that's, part of the thing too. Like you have to take the time to enjoy the city that, Filmapalooza is in.
Exactly.
We try to make it in a cool location every year.
Yeah. And that's why, when I hosted in Seattle in 2017, I remember when the call went out for proposals for putting together, locations. Mark asked me if I wanted to make a proposal for Seattle, and I said, yeah. And seriously, within 90 minutes, my wife Kasha and we had the outline of a proposal together, because we knew she'd been to Filma before.
Right.
She knows the structure. And then it's like, okay, we got to keep it all in one neighborhood, which is the Lower Queen Anne area in Seattle, which is where a theater is. And there's a good hotel. And so you try to make everything so that people don't have to, commute too much.
Right.
And luckily, we had that all within 5 blocks in Seattle. And granted, most of my experience of Filma in Seattle was running to Cash and Carry and to Costco and back.
Well, it's funny because I actually can't wait until we have Filmapalooza Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Because, you know, I don't think most people realize Cleveland is as cool as it is. And it's something, you know, it's a place, it's a city that's been, we've been the butt of many jokes. But you know, Cleveland really has grown tremendously, really in the time that I've been with the 48-hour film project. I've seen the city grow as well and become this cool thing. Like we had the RNC, which was a huge thing. And that's, sort of an indicative of, people are starting to look at Cleveland as more of a location now. And the NBA All-Star game, that's happening in Cleveland. So it's we're sort of growing the city as well. We have a great new mayor, and I'm excited to hopefully have everybody come to Cleveland one day, because it will be a fantastic Filmapalooza.
Oh, I have no doubt about that. I'd love to come visit your stomping grounds.
Yeah.
Because you got the inside track with you.
Absolutely.
So running a Filmapalooza is very different from attending, for sure. But one of the most rewarding things for me personally was the opening night party that we had at KEXP, in the lobby of KEXP in Seattle. And normally I don't have, stage fright, when I get up and talk to the audience at my screenings, or, any other public events I attend where I'm asked to speak. But I was really a bit overwhelmed, seeing all these people from around the world, in my hometown, and just kind of the weight of that, hit me a little. It's like, I hope we did enough. This is, just way too cool. All these people here. And I got the executive director of the Office of Film and Music for Seattle and the state film commissioner there. And it blew their minds to see the scope of the 48-hour film project, because they knew about it locally.
Right.
They'd been judges locally, and they were really impressed by the fact that there's this whole other echelon of filmmakers in town that they don't necessarily know.
Yep.
Because in their positions, they're dealing with the people that need to get permits and contracts and paperwork for the incentive. So they're dealing with the upper echelon of filmmakers in Washington and the Seattle area. And then they see the 48 and go, holy crap, who are all these people? I had no idea that there was this much talent just bubbling under the surface.
Exactly. And that's the same thing, it's the same thing in Cleveland. It's the same thing, I imagine, in probably a lot of different cities, that have a film community like this. The 48 has been, we've kind of helped to grow the independent film community around the world in general. I would like to think.
Yeah. Excuse me. It's the impact that this, I hate calling it a competition.
Right.
No,
exactly.
there are awards, city by city, and then there's awards at Filmapalooza.
Sure.
I like to think of it as an event more than a competition. Yes. But just the sheer scope of it now is, even in a pandemic, having 90 cities is pretty damn impressive.
Oh yeah. Right. I mean, the fact, right. I mean, when you look at the fact that we are essentially, a film events company,
mm-hmm.
The fact that we're still here is impressive because,
yes. Talk about doing more with less.
Yeah, exactly. And that is, the fact that the 48-hour film project is still here is only because of the tenacity of the city producers and the headquarters staff, and I don't know how much the filmmakers understand that, but the city producers do.
Yes,
so much.
Yes,
so much.
I think I can safely speak for all of us city producers out here. If it weren't for you and Mark and Christina and until recently Laura and Wouter and Indra, I mean, you're holding this giant ship together with a bunch of little strings, and it's right. We're all doing our best to support it. And I mean, the 2021 Filmapalooza was weird. It was very weird. I mean, it's great that
it happened.
It happened at all. And I mean, the panels that were organized were phenomenal. Right. Absolutely phenomenal. And the work that Indra and my co-producer Chris Flink put into organizing all of that was, I mean, it was Herculean. It was massive.
Yep, absolutely.
So it was really good to see that, happen. But again, it wasn't Filmapalooza in the same way because there was no person-to-person contact. I mean, the trivia, the karaoke, they were all great attempts, but
there's never going to be anything to replicate the in-person experience of the 48-hour film project.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's, in fact, one of the reasons why, the 48 has been successful is because we are based on in-person events.
Yes. And I mean, there's nothing like the personal interaction you get, meeting people you don't know as of yet. I've made so many great friends and professional contacts through this,
right?
As a city producer, but there were a handful of benefits that came out of the pandemic, like Cinema 48. I think that's going to be a game changer for Absolutely. All of us city producers. I envision a future in Seattle where we're doing, in-person kickoff, kind of with a hybrid option for people, who are, say, all the way across the state in Spokane, where it's just unreasonable for them to drive 5 hours, for a physical kickoff, do a hybrid virtual in-person kickoff, and then do the, the drop off all virtually. It makes my life so easier as the editor for my city.
Yes.
And as entertaining as some of the drop off stories are, just the level of risk and danger that people have put themselves in to get their films in on time is pretty astounding. I'm actually kind of amazed that no one's died doing it.
Yep.
And I've never heard of a serious injury either. But
no, I don't think we ever have. And but I've heard some really close calls and some things, there's stories of, people, filmmakers doing 120 on the freeway and getting pulled over by cops and explaining their way out of getting a ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally seen, when we do the countdown from 10 to 7:30, and just people hauling ass down a sidewalk.
Yeah.
More than one occasion, I've seen someone, just bite it.
Yep.
And their paperwork went flying everywhere. And if they hadn't tripped, they'd have been on time. It's just heartbreaking things like that.
The saddest thing is the person that runs in, well, it used to be, that would run in just after the deadline.
It's heartbreaking to.
Yep.
Oh, a couple of years ago, we had a first time participant. It was in the horror, and they took a wrong turn and they were 3 minutes late.
Yep.
And I had to spend a lot of time comforting this woman.
Yeah.
And just explaining, you're late, I'm sorry. And I am so grateful that Chris is part of the team, because this woman was having some issues that I can't relate to. Sure. And Chris could. They were having, they're roughly the same age and having, very similar experiences. So Chris was able to really talk her down and, get her to accept, that it's late, but, it screens, it's eligible for audience favorite. And she's come back twice since then and was an award winner this year. She was in the top 4 for horror. So, there are benefits to, turning it in regardless. And, if you're late, if you miss the line of dialogue, there are benefits to accepting that you're not going to win Best in City if you, tripped up on one of the requirements, time or story elements, that just, go at it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've learned from that experience.
The best thing I think for filmmakers is to look at the 48-hour film project not as a contest, but as sort of a personal challenge to themselves.
Yeah.
Can you get this done? Can I make the film that I want to in this short time frame?
Yeah. It's film school in a weekend, I like to say.
Absolutely.
And it teaches you things that you're just not going to learn in film school. I think time pressure.
Absolutely.
Time pressure, some curveballs that you're never going to see. And
you're immediately dealing with every single piece of the filmmaking experience. Everything from, pre-production, what can you do in advance, to a very tight production schedule, to actors not showing up, what's your B plan, to
managing egos. That's a big one.
Yep. Locations being falling out at the last minute.
Oh, that's a big one.
Right.
Yeah.
And it really teaches you a lot of things about the filmmaking process in general, and just sort of how you have to roll with the punches in order to get these films done sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an incredible learning experience. And I always say that, I tip my hat to everyone who completes one.
Absolutely.
It's part of our jobs as city producers is, consoling the people who got disqualified on a rules technicality.
Yeah.
Or they're late. And I mean, I think fundamentally a different person than I was 17 years ago because of my interacting with filmmakers. I find that I'm, in general, as a person, I think I'm more diplomatic, empathetic, sympathetic, because I know, the heartbreak and the frustration of
right.
of what they're going through. So, I'm thankful for that. I just think that I'm a better person because of my experience as a city producer, and just working with people who are dealing with frustration. And I think, the me before the 48 would probably be like, well, tough shit, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's like a really important point too, for anybody that's working in the entertainment industry, because it's so, everyone for themselves,
Mm-hmm.
very cutthroat. And, but it doesn't have to be.
No.
So, like, the culture of Hollywood, I mean, that's like a whole that's a whole podcast in itself. But
Yeah.
It does not, you can create, the 48-hour film project proves that you can create a Hollywood level of film production without all of the Hollywood bullshit that goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so kind of spinning out of that, I want to ask you about, so if someone wants to be a city producer for the 48, you're the person to talk to.
Yep.
So what goes into that, and what are you specifically looking for?
Okay, so the first thing that sort of anybody needs to understand is that being a city producer is sort of like running your own small business in the filmmaking industry.
Indeed, I have a business license for it.
Yep. And a lot of our city producers do that. They run it like through their production company, or or like another organization or something like that. You have to understand that it's a business. That's the key thing. So once you understand that, you then sort of, the relationship between the city producers and headquarters makes a little more sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So then, in terms of what we're looking for, definitely an interest in film. But you don't necessarily have to be a filmmaker, you know. Our city producers are, come from all different sorts of backgrounds. So some of them are event producers, a lot of them are filmmakers, a lot of them are 48-hour filmmakers.
Yeah.
And that is, one thing that we look at, is this person, have they competed before? Have they been through the process as a filmmaker? Do they understand like what, the experience is? Because that's sort of like one level of understanding that you have to have in order to be a good city producer.
Yeah.
But some of our producers are marketing people. Some are educators. Some are artists, and the cool kind of thing is, film in general is like sort of the ultimate, like the most collaborative form of art and work that you can imagine.
Yes.
Because it not only allows you to work with people from all these different worlds and skill sets, it requires it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are so many things, when I first started out in the industry, I worked as a gaffer a lot because I had, a background in photography. That's what I went to college for the first time around.
Sure.
But I also got deep into editing. Editing was, my first love coming out of film school.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to do anything to, get myself on set and get editing work. And, when Liz recruited me, I mean, I've told this story several times already, but, I was really, really drunk at Cinequest in San Jose. And, when she asked me if I wanted to run Seattle, I was like, yeah. And I woke up the next morning like, whoa, what did I just sign up for?
Right.
I'm an editor. What the hell am I doing? But with the help of, Mark and Liz, and then, Christina later on, and Ben, and, Rob Hatch from Baltimore and Portland. He was my mentor for a couple of years, helping me get, figure things out. What I've learned over the years is incredible stuff that I didn't think that I would be learning professionally. Like, during COVID, Chris and we've had to write grant applications, and I've had no luck with that in the past. The cynic in me always comes out. I was writing, I'd start writing this really smarmy copy thinking, that was going to appease the grantors. But, working collaboratively with Chris, and just learning to kind of tamp down, I think, some of my, more cynical attributes.
Yeah.
By dealing with people, a lot of people, and people I don't know, and angry people and overjoyed people. I learned a lot of skills that have helped, temper my cynicism, innate cynicism over the years. And I attribute that to being a city producer and the people, around me, fellow city producers and headquarters staff like yourself. So,
yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is, if you want to be successful in the film world, no matter what you do, you have to understand people.
Yeah.
And you have to be a people person. And that doesn't mean, you don't have to be, we're not talking about introvert, extrovert sort of thing here.
Mhm.
Because, I don't particularly enjoy talking to people on a day-to-day basis, but
Mhm.
I love collaborating with people, and I understand people really well, which is part of the reason why it's easy for me to make decisions, because you can immediately be empathetic to everybody's viewpoints.
Yeah. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is, I've never liked being the center of attention.
Right.
I mean, I was 6'4" when I was 14. I stood out, everywhere I went. And, I never liked being the center of attention. So I've kind of lived a life where, I have a small cloister of very close friends, and where I could get the level of attention, that suits me. But, there is, if you do run a city for long enough, you do gain this, weird little bit of celebrity.
Yes.
And especially at after parties, there's always someone who wants to monopolize your time. And
Sure.
me, I want to hop around table to table and congratulate everyone. And so, I learned ultimately through this, I don't want to be the center of attention. I like, being the conductor of this train, but I also like being in the engine kind of by myself, with Chris helping me out. And ultimately, I think career wise, I like helping other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'd have come to that realization had I not done this. I would prefer to, not be personally recognized for a project I'm on, but I want to help out so that whoever is leading the charge gets the recognition they deserve. That's much more where I like to operate. And I don't know if I'd have come to that outside of the 48, being a city producer.
Yeah, I think that's like the most gratifying thing for me is sort of being a connector,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the 48-hour film project does, in every way possible, every aspect of it.
Yeah. And I like that, the connections that we make as city producers, are going to outlive us in a way. I love seeing two people come to a meet and greet that have never known each other before. They do the 48, they have a blast. And next thing you know, they have their own production company and their own careers as creative collaborators.
Yep.
It's amazing to see that. I would much rather facilitate that than do that myself.
Yeah. Like, honestly, it's the best job in the world. And I will be 100% honest. I miss being a city producer already. I I retired in 2019, and that was for a lot of different reasons. Some were personal because of things that were happening in my personal life, and some were because I thought Cleveland, that it might be time for Cleveland to have a breath of fresh air,
Mhm.
sort of, and get sort of new blood into the 48. And just because of my own, personal goals and things, like I wanted to start a horror festival, which I did, as you know.
Yes.
And I want to open a film center in Cleveland. So I am in the process of opening up a nonprofit, and
Oof,
so
paperwork.
oh yeah. Well, thankfully paperwork is done and we're just waiting, but
Nice.
um you know, it was very sad for me. It's very sad for me to not be a city producer. It's something that I let go, but because I sort of had to let it go in order to, you know, do some other things with my life
Hmm.
that I need to, but it's something that I will sorely miss. And if I can ever find the opportunity to get back to there, I probably will be a city producer again.
Yeah, that's, I always, people ask me how long I'm going to do it. And honestly, I don't know, but where my head is right now, I don't envision a future where I'm not doing this. I'm sure that day will come. I mean, I turned 50 this year, and it's a bit of a turning point where you start thinking about different things in life.
Sure.
But I don't. I had, it was 2015 or 2016 where Seattle had its biggest year ever, where we had 84 teams, and I did my screenings 2 days after the drop off, and
Oh,
I edit.
wow.
Yeah, I'd always done it 2 days after, but that year we had a huge surge, and it almost killed me. I mean,
Yeah.
I was so out of it at the screenings. It was just, I was the Walking Dead.
Sure.
And I'd, had some people come on, help me in the past, and, good friends. And, for very valid reasons, their heart was never, into it to the level that, I required out of a partner.
Yeah.
And then, I met Chris Flink in 2014, and she came through for me at a time when I was, desperate for help. And, after she ran the 2017 Seattle Horror Awards for me, I said, okay, do you want to be my partner in this? And she said, yeah. And it was, exactly what I needed to keep me, personally afloat, running the 48 in Seattle. And, it fit in with Chris's, professional goals. She runs events. That's her primary source of income, is running events.
Right.
And, so she's bringing something, a level of expertise that I don't have to the table. And that really renewed my, vigor for the possibility of growing it in Seattle. And then boom, a pandemic hit.
Right.
So, but, Chris has been there. We've been, just struggling through the grants to keep us going, and
Yeah.
working really hard to find connections that'll help us get the next in-person screening. And I think, we'll be back to some semblance of normal this year. But, we had to put Missoula on hold for 2 years because of the pandemic. We had
Right.
a small start in 2019, and, we both, Chris grew up in Missoula, and my brother's family lives south of Missoula. So I, go there a lot. And out of the pandemic, and the tools that are being developed for us as city producers and for the participants, we figured out an idea that because of the pandemic, without the pandemic, I don't think we'd have thought of. And that's that we're now running the Montana 48-hour film project, because Montana is a big, big, big state. It is huge. And, there's three major, cities.
Right.
You got Billings way, way, way out east. And then you have Bozeman, which is the largest. And then you have Missoula, which is second largest, I believe. But I mean, they're all spread out by hundreds of miles. And then we figured, how can Missoula itself isn't big enough to really grow too big with the 48. And then I thought, well, there's industry in Billings. Bozeman's a bigger city, it's the biggest city in the state. And Missoula is starting to boom because of their film incentive. Why don't we do virtual kickoff and drop off, invite everyone from the state, and then we do a night of screenings in Billings, we do a night of screenings in Bozeman, and we do a night of screenings in Missoula. And that way we can get, everyone in the state involved. No one is too far a drive from one of the screening hubs. And that came about because of the pandemic. I don't think we'd have thought of that.
Yeah.
Without it.
And that's brilliant. And that's, just sort of something that, we've all figured out how to adapt.
Yeah.
Right. Because of the pandemic. And that's, humanity in general. But for sure, like the 48-hour film project as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of our motto, adapt.
Yeah. Yep.
Adapt, adopt, and improve. So we're coming up on an hour here. So I want to get one last notion from you.
Yeah.
Give me your best pitch for why you should come to Filmapalooza.
Filmapalooza is a life-changing experience for many people. It is not only the best way to get connected to the film world, it's an introduction into a film. Again, you said it, the film family that you didn't know that you had. And when you come to Filmapalooza, you are going to find people from all over the world that you didn't realize that you just have to be friends with this person because they're the coolest people in the world, and you see their film and it's incredible, and you realize that you all have done that same thing. You've all taken part in that experience. You've all gone through the process. You've all made a film, and you're all, you all did it in your cities, and now you're all coming together from all over the world and doing it together in one place at Filmapalooza.
Yeah, it is definitely, it can be a life-changing event. I mean, I'm literally marked for life because of a Filmapalooza. 3 of us are. And Dino from Atlanta is going to join the ranks this year.
Nice.
That's what he said. So and like Dino, the city producer from Atlanta, I'd never met him until we started having our city producer, weekend chats on Zoom.
Yeah.
And again, I've never, met him in person, or if I had it, it was briefly at Atlanta in 2016. But again, a family member I didn't know, that I had, just
Yep.
instantly, just love this guy. And I can't wait to, see him in person, go get a tattoo with him. Well, thank you, Brian. This is very informative and enlightening.
Absolutely.
And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, and I'll see you in about a month.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
All right. Until next time.
All right.
So it really doesn't matter what you look like, say, or do. I know that I had a cooler weekend than you.
48 Hour Heroes Origin Stories is a production of Media Without Borders and the Seattle 48 Hour Film Project.